Andrea, thank you so much for partnering with the Rotman students in our Global Manager Initiative. But perhaps before we get started, could I ask you to introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about your company?
Yeah, sure. Andria Santos, founder and CEO of Full House, and we have been furnishing hospitality and short-term rental projects internationally, especially across Canada and the US. Recently, we developed an AI design assistant that we call Ludwig that enables our clients or users to upload an image that inspires them, and Ludwig will output a furniture package that resembles that image, which can then be edited and checked out in one single place. So that's the launch of that platform, which just started in September.
And I see on your website that you've had coverage from all of the big global media companies.
Yeah, we've been featured in a lot of them, from Bloomberg to the New York Times to, from the design magazines to Dwell, Home and Country. So we've been lucky to have quite a bit of press.
Yeah, that's really great news, and what a great opportunity for our students. You know, Andrew, one of the things that we tell the companies that partner with us is that it has to be win-win. And most importantly is that we don't want the students to be a burden on the company, but rather have a partnership where the students benefit from this incredible experience, but at the same time, the companies benefit from the insights and energy of the students. So perhaps you can tell us about your experience in this respect.
I mean, it was absolutely phenomenal to have, I think it was 4 or 5 people working behind the scenes to get us ready for this event. And, we spoke briefly, but I had almost like 5 events back to back across Europe and the US and Canada. And so being able to prepare adequately for each of these types of events and conferences is really quite time consuming. So to have somebody who, especially with such a ginormous event when we're talking about the expo, Smart Cities in Barcelona, huge event, right? Huge conference. Every single government agency across multiple different cities around the world are there to talk to. So having the students really hone in and focus on here's who's coming, here's who we need to speak to was so key. And then not only that, they created a grid matrix to weigh each of these possible contacts and the value that they can bring to Full House. And they really looked across the gamut of both client, partner, or supplier to really see, across all of these different contacts, who would be the best option weighted across different aspects of qualities that they could bring. So it is phenomenal work to actually, have on the back end to be able to do this stuff and really have a really efficient event and get to speak to the most amount of people possible.
Yeah, so I understand that when you were in Barcelona, not only was it the Smart Cities Expo, but you were also doing another show, and you actually took the students with you to the other show. How helpful were they in these multiple activities that you were doing at the same time?
I really believe in exposing people to the most amount of information and then letting them fully piece together how it all fits together, right? So like how do all of these different conferences from smart cities to this was a student housing and student accommodation conference. And, as students, it was really relevant for them also to be there. So at this other conference, I kind of let them go at it. It's like, now you've had the one training, you've spoken to us several times, you know exactly what we do. How do you think we fit into this market now? And I know how we fit into student accommodation. It's fairly easy. But now go and talk to the service providers, go and talk to the other people you think we can partnership with and ask them, how we can carry on the conversation. And they did with very little preparation. We sprung this on them at the last minute. And they went in little preparation and they just spoke to everybody and, pitched Full House, and they were texting us a lineup of people. Like we literally followed them next and basically, created agreements or follow-up email and calls with these different suppliers and clients alike. So, they're almost doing like our warm-up lead generation and discovery calls with a lot of these clients.
Yeah, that's so great to hear as a professor because, Andrea, we can teach them certain things in the classroom, but putting them in a real world environment where they're helping a company like Full House in its efforts to commercialize globally, we could never teach that. Perhaps I could ask you your views on the evolution of the students when you first met them. How did you feel, and how long did it take before you felt, wow, they're really going to deliver value?
So it was interesting because early on, because it's quite a diversified class, right? So you had some MBA students and then some were, I think,
Yeah, undergraduate commerce
undergrad.
students.
Yeah, exactly. So it was hard to really know who was where in their, learning and their academic career. So that was a little bit hard to understand. So I really just, again, like you were on those calls, I gave all of the information. And then I was like, okay, let's see what they come back with, right? After you've briefed them extensively on your business and your business model, you're curious to see what they're going to come back with. So the second time they came back, and I think you weren't on that call, and it was a call that we had on our own. They had pointed questions. They had done their research. They had looked into who we are, who our customers should be. They'd looked into, really doing good analyses on the different verticals that we could possibly go into, and they came back to us with very pointed questions and even making suggestions that we actually change our focus for this one conference and look more at investors versus customers or suppliers, because this was probably more likely to be suitable for that purpose. So just being able to actually give advice to a company as a student
Mm.
is pretty impressive and confident, right? And it was good advice. So I was really, really, really impressed with the way that they came back. And it was probably the second or third the first meeting that we had alone. That was proof of that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear. So I think you're telling me that I should give all the students a grade of A.
Definitely the ones that helped us, they're all A+ students for sure.
So I just have two more quick questions for you. So based on all of this work you did to them leading up to the trade mission, when they got to Barcelona, and as we said earlier when I chatted with you, you were all in, you were really busy there. You had full confidence in having the students represent Full House in the various ways that you agreed.
Yeah. Yeah, I had extreme confidence. I mean, like we got there the first morning, we met at our, booth, and I basically told them, I told one of them like, okay, go pitch me Full House, right? So like before we go anywhere, let me hear you pitch me Full House, right? So then they did, and they kind of jumped in and helped each other sort of fill in the gaps. They did a great job. We fine-tuned some of the language because who we're talking to, right? So talking about design versus talking about procurement, right? Procurement is a problem that cities have. Design is less of a problem that cities have, right? Whereas when you're talking to student residences, they have design as a problem and procurement. So, kind of teaching them these little nuances of language and, especially when you're talking to, client or whoever, you really do have to adapt your language and your tone. So, we quickly adjusted certain of those, pitch dynamics, and then off they went. And I basically told them, your job is to talk to as many people as possible, right? Spread out, go booth by booth. I really want you guys to hit the ground running and talk to as many people as possible. And of course, document who you've spoken to. And if there's any interest, how we can further develop those conversations. And they were off to the races right away.
Yeah, so great to
Yeah.
hear. So my
Yeah.
final question is, for all of the companies that are considering partnering with Rotman on the student initiative for the next trade mission, what would your advice be to those companies? Should they partner with us?
I mean, I couldn't even imagine a world where you wouldn't partner with Rotman for this purpose. It's just, are you kidding me? I want you guys a part of every single event and conference that we go to, to help facilitate and really hone in on, some valuable information and optimize your time somewhere, right? Like you mentioned, like I had been to like 5 different conferences back to back. It was really hard to follow up with this. So to have that kind of support and really qualified students, even on the junior side, right, on the undergrad side, super qualified, very intuitive, on the nose, like really, really excellent people who really knew what they were talking about and were able to also produce valuable information that I was not aware of. So, I mean, I can't imagine a company that wouldn't jump on this opportunity.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about this, for doing this testimonial. But more importantly, thank you so much for giving the students the opportunity to experience Full House in your efforts to internationalize.
Yes, and I do hope to speak to them again very soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.